All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Reputation Igniter podcast. I'm super excited to have you here with our guest today is Ken Infante. Ken, thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate you, sir.
I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to be here, man. Thank you for the invite.
Of course. So if you haven't already, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and write a review if you so choose, just to get the word out. As you know, we are always constantly trying to bring on the leaders in our industry, and more importantly, really trying to focus on more people that are actually inside the HVAC businesses that you guys are working in, really focusing on getting more HVAC owners onto the show so that we can help them kind of share their zone of genius, which Ken will do a great job sharing his zone of genius, although he's not the owner. He's usually in a capacity that's really driving a lot of revenue. And so without that, these businesses do not succeed. Nothing happens until a sale is made. And so what I am trying to do here is, of course, just help you guys become better at your craft, bringing on people to focus on their zone of genius to help you kind of get insights on what those specific, different aspects of your business are that you can improve. Because as you know, we are constantly fighting the barrage and onslaught from mainstream media about, entrepreneurs being these greedy, money-hungry people, when in reality, all we want to do is put food on the table for our families, to keep the people that we have underneath us employed, and to serve our communities. And so with that, I hope to bring some amazing, incredible wisdom out of Ken to help you grow your business. And so Ken has obviously started his career in the WWF. At least I remember it when it was the WWF. Now they got the whole WWE and all that good stuff. And so he brings a lot of showmanship to what he does. And he has been in the HVAC industry since 2013. He started originally with Horizon Services, who I think does something north of $1 billion in revenue these days, and switched from there to Air Pros, another huge player in the space, doing about $250 million, and then went down and kind of, stepped down and kind of helped the little guy out, so to speak, with Southern Coast, helping them move to $10 million in about 7 months, which is incredible. And that's really what I want to kind of ask you some questions about. I know that you're working with USA Home Improvement right now, but maybe we can kick this off. How in your mind, you're obviously all focused on growth and revenue, right? So what would you say is the fastest way to get from that kind of 1 million to 3 million, where I think a lot of my listeners are, and then to kind of piggyback and continue on to hitting that 5 and that 6 million mark? What would you say you found as you continue to run these kind of sales organizations and really kind of drive this revenue growth for you?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. So the biggest thing I see is when I go and I consult for a company, the owners, they take on too much. They want to be in every aspect, and they lose sight of the growth because they're focused on the minutiae going on around them. What they need to do is sometimes take a step back and realize that they can't do it all by themselves. All right, so they want to be involved in every aspect, which is great, but they really need to put someone in the right seat. They need to be the influencer, and someone needs to be the driver. Okay, they got to have the vision, and then the driver driving the revenue for them while they go build the brand out. When I go to these companies and I see what's going on, I take 2 weeks before I do anything, minimum, because I want to watch. And the number one thing I always see is there's no process. There's no process for sales. There's no scripts for the call center. There's nothing. So when I go there, these are the things I'm looking for. So if you're a $1 million guy, take a look in the mirror yourself, see how you're coming to work. You got to see how your guys are coming to work. And I would mystery shop all my guys. I go rent houses all the time and send my guys through the fun house while my friends are there, or I'm in the back room with a microphone laughing, and then I show them the video, right? Like if you don't know until you watch it. So when I would go in, the first thing I would do, guys, I would find someone, whether it's myself or like a Drew Cameron from EGIA, and I would get a good coach that can come in there and that can show you processes to streamline your organization. So when your guys, whether you're using selling technicians or comfort consultants, when they're in a house, 30 minutes in, every single one of those guys, whether you have 2 guys or 10 guys, should have done the same exact thing at that point and should be almost at the same point in the sale at that point. The guys don't. They go to a home and they go rogue. And that's where you have someone like myself, and there's some other guys around the country that do close to what I do, not exactly, but those guys then can monitor the call by call. And you have to have it. You can't let your technicians or your sales guys make executive decisions that could cost you money. Or they just walk away with a $0 ticket, and now you just blew $300 or $400 on that call because you paid to go there, and they're walking to zero because you didn't have anybody monitoring that. So that's the biggest thing I see is no processes, there's no call by call, and the owners, most of the time, cannot get out of their own way.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's something that I've been kind of hearing, like with a lot of my guests, is we're all talking about processes, right? And you need to have a process for everything. I think that most people go, I'm so busy I can't make a process. Well, the thing is, you're going to continue to be busy until you build those processes, because if you don't have processes, then you're constantly the guy that's the one kind of nurturing everybody in that realm. And I think that's the yeah. And I love, by the way, the fact that you waited for 2 weeks before you institute any change, because you got to watch, right? That was something that we were always taught, like when you took over a new division in the military, right? Is you don't change anything for at least 2 weeks. You got to see how it's run, right? Just to figure out like what's the status quo, what is the modus operandi for everybody currently, so you understand like, hey, this is where we're at. Where do we got to go? And I love, like you said, it's like, you really need to like get yourself in a position where you can see, okay, what are the processes that are being implemented? So I think the next logical question is, people go, Ken, that's great, man. I get it. I want to be that influencer. I have a great vision for my company. I want to build this brand. That's awesome. But I think you're out of your mind. Like, I don't know how I'm going to find a driver. Where does somebody find a driver, right? I mean, how tight our labor market is right now. Like, is that driver, is that somebody inside the organization? Is it outside the organization? Is it in the HVAC industry? Is it outside the HVAC industry? I just had a really great call, or a recording with Jim Bergman, the owner and founder of MeasureQuick, and he was talking all about the processes that you need when the HVAC tech, like essentially what you were saying, right, is the processes of data acquisition and knowledge of like what actually is the problem, feeding it back to like a service manager for a call by call, like you're saying. So he's echoing everything that you're talking about. What he was talking about is a shift of the approach that somebody has in terms of who they're bringing on, because there's two positions that he talks about, which anyways, the long story of that is he's not necessarily finding people that are actually techs to kind of come in and take these new positions. Instead, he's finding people that have good soft skills, like customer service skills, and then teaching them the OJ, on the job training on the technical aspects. So long sort of introduction to how do you find the driver? Where is that driver? What do they look like? How can somebody identify them? Where should somebody look for that?
All right. So here's how I was found, right?
Yeah.
So when I left wrestling, I got into the car business. So I was selling cars. I became a used car manager and a floor manager and a closer. But again, I knew then that everything was a show.
Yeah.
You have the best show, you're going to make the most dough. And I don't care what industry you're in.
Love because,
that. And they can write this down. Whether you're an HVAC company, plumbing company, a roofing and window company, you are not in the service industry. You are in the entertainment industry. And if you walk into a house like mud, you're going to leave with zero. Because I can guarantee, if you walk in a house and then I walk in a house, you're going to lose. Because I'm going to put on the show of shows. Yeah. So you need to find someone, charisma, positive energy. Any negativity, don't hire them.
Yeah.
Any negativity, throw them out. Don't even have them around you, because they're just going to bring you down. Mm-hmm. Positivity driven. And if I'm looking for guys that can be drivers, I'm looking in the car business, the managers. Because they're the guys that they're used to the hours, they're used to the phone, they're used to coaching the guys. Try walking out of a car dealership and not getting TO'd by the managers 3 times. Right?
Yeah.
But here we are in this industry, whether it's HVAC, plumbing, pool, I don't care what it is. Sales guy goes in, leaves 20 minutes later. Yeah, they're not buying nothing. They're getting 20 bids. Do you know, this is one of my favorite things to hear.
Sure.
Because that means they're looking for information. They're just looking for the right guy. They're not looking for the cheapest price.
No.
Horizon Services. Like the biggest company in the country.
Yeah.
Also the most expensive.
Yeah.
So, let's follow the path here, right? If you're the most expensive and the biggest, you're clearly doing something right.
Right.
If price was the issue, wouldn't the cheapest guy be the biggest?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not the price, it's the show.
I like it. And that's kind of, Jim was echoing the same things. Like, now obviously you're saying go into the car, into car sales and find people there, which I think is good, like you're saying, for a driver, right? But if you're dealing with something maybe a little bit closer to the customer per se, right? Like this is obviously the leader of the band, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was saying like you could go with anybody who's kind of in a customer service role, but to your point, I think that's great. Hey, here's an idea. Next time you're going to buy another van or another truck to continue to expand your operation, like I would literally just walk the lot and see who's hungry enough to go bite on you, right? And then that's the guy that you go after, kind of thing, right? So
right, who's the guy that keeps following up with you?
Yeah.
Did the manager come talk to you? Was he friendly? Did he walk you around the entire dealership before you even talked about price?
Yeah.
Did he do a show? If you go and you find that guy that can do the show and sell your brand as opposed to a carrier, which no one cares what brand you're selling,
right?
They got to sell the brand and they got to believe in it. But guys don't. They walk in, they pull out Service Titan in 20 minutes. They look exactly like every other company because everyone has Service Titan.
Yep.
And they don't differentiate themselves. So, of course, you guys are all fighting over price because you didn't make yourself special.
Yeah. Well, and I think in that vein too, right, is so many people look so similar, right, that they can't even tell you apart, right? And really what somebody who's, I mean, nobody wants to go get 20 bids. They don't. Everybody would like to be able to call the first person. That first person comes out, they wow them, they have and feel confident in the selection of that person to deliver on them, and they're going to pay it, right? Especially with the way that we finance systems these days, right? It's not really a money issue anymore. It's more of, like you're saying, it's a brand issue and what was the experience? Did they really enjoy it, right? Now, I think there's a happy medium, right? There's following up and then there's inconsistency, right? Like, just a situation right now that, you know, we're trying to get motorized screens on our back patio, right? Which is it's going to be 10 grand, right? But, you know, you reach out to some people, they call you, they're confident, they explain exactly what's nuanced and different about them, and then they schedule an appointment. Well, that was great. I'm probably going to go with that person. The other person who had a BOGO deal was essentially like buy one, get one 50% off, which, you know, it initially is interesting to me, right? Because it's like, hey, I'd love to save money on 10 grand, you know, improvement. But they changed the appointment on me literally 4 times in 36 hours. And I said, you know what, cancel my appointment. I said, I'm good, you know? And why was that? Because they just seem flaky and inconsistent, right? So it's how do you mediate between the two of them? And I think, like you said, she called me back. She showed very, you know, a lot of confidence, a lot of conviction in what she was offering. And we scheduled an appointment. They're going to fulfill it and we're going to go ahead, right? And it's like the bar sometimes is so low. It's just ridiculous how people continue to stumble over it and don't just pick their feet up, right?
That's a good point. Right? So they actually, right, showed you the kind of service you'll get after the install.
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't even come to your house. You didn't need to get another. You didn't need to talk to anybody.
Nope.
So that call center, when I go in, whether it's here or anywhere, the first place I go is the call center.
Yeah.
It's your first point of contact.
Yep.
And I've gone to places, you know, where the mother's answering the phone. She's a nice old lady, but that isn't going to work for, you're not getting the 1 million to 3 million with your mom answering.
Nope. Yeah.
You need that sweet young girl who's smiling on the phone and enthusiastic. And, you know, when she answers the phone, she says your catchphrase, whatever it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's, again, a script. Boom, 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 boom. Hit the bullet points. And then when you say you're going to be there 15 minutes early.
Yep.
There's another flaw. I can't blame Service Titan for it.
Yeah.
Everybody's booking 2-3 hour windows.
Yeah.
So the sales guys, you know, if it's at 8 to 10, they show up at like 9:40. The techs are showing up at 9 o'clock. But you already lost the people.
Yeah.
Because they were ready at 8.
Right. Yeah.
Horizon Services, I'll tell you right now, you're 15 minutes early. You don't work there.
Yeah.
There is no window. It's like, here's your appointments at 9. Not 9:05, 9. And then when you've done that one, we'll find another one for you.
Well, and that's how I felt with her, because she kept moving the appointment like up and earlier in the day. I was like, I told you in our first interaction, I have a business and I am not available until after 3 o'clock every day. And so like the idea that she was pitching times like earlier than that's like, clearly you didn't pay attention to what my initial thing is. And like, so, and the other thing that people blows my mind, a lot of service like companies, they like, it's almost as if you don't work and you are just waiting around all day for them to show up. It's like, no, a lot of people are going in late to work, right? Or they're coming home early from work and they're expecting you to be there at a given time. And so like you said, throw away the windows, tell them a time, show up 15 minutes earlier. And, I think the fear is that, well, we're going to do one less call every single day. It's like, to your point though, like Horizon being the most expensive. Well, sure. What if you did one less appointment, but you did that appointment better and your closing ratio went up and your LTV for that client increased? Like, all of those are better metrics than just jamming one more call in there. Just like you said, you've spent $400 or $500 to get out there, right? Only to just kind of throw it away because you don't have the right infrastructure, you don't have the right call by call guy. Your selling tech doesn't really have a process. They're just kind of bumbling through it, and they look like every other bozo that came through the front door. Instead, like you said, give them some class, some style, and they'll remember you, right? So I love it.
You really have to hammer, and this is something these guys, and I can't expect. And when I go to any company, and Anthony Pereira will tell you this, so the Horizon, there's not a whole lot of people out there like me, right? Like, sure. I walk into any room and I'm taking over the whole room. Yep. I understand that technicians aren't as, well versed in reality as I am when it comes to society. They're used to fixing things and they want to leave. No.
Yeah.
You got to get your technicians in the house, booties on every single time. They got to go to the kitchen table first, and they got to sit down and talk to the consumer.
Yeah.
Because there's a word that is thrown around, and I've heard everyone say this word, build value. So I'm going to tell everyone watching, you ready for this? You have zero value. I don't care what brand your truck is. I don't care what your logo is. You have zero value until you build trust. If you go to the house and you don't build trust first, they will never see value in you. And I don't care what your price is or what you're selling. So you got to be on time, booties on, go to the kitchen table, show them how much you care, and then they care how much you know. But guys go in, tell them how smart they are, how wonderful they are, how horrible every other company is. No. Actively listen at the kitchen table, take your notes, set your agenda, ask them, if I find anything else wrong, would you like to know about it? They're going to say yes, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah.
Once you set the agenda and tell them what's coming next, right? Now you've de-escalated it. So they know you're going to tell them, here's the options, and you're not going to get the sales resistance, the pushback.
Yep.
But guys walk right over to the system, whether it's an air conditioner or water, whatever it is, walk in, mud, right to the problem. Within 20 seconds, they're telling them $6,000, $4,000, $800. Who would trust you?
Right.
Why would anybody trust you?
Yeah.
No processes and no training.
Yeah. Well, and so I like what you're saying is don't tell them you're better, show them you're better, right? Like I know you're all about the show. So, okay, so let's move to like what I would say is kind of like the next phase of this, right? Like they've got all that dialed in. What are some best practices for the call by call aspect of it? Like how do you kind of bring and wrap that in there so that, it's a seamless sort of what I like to call in the customer experience process. It's just a natural progression of, the relationship and the customer experience itself. Like, what does that look like? What are maybe some stumbling points that people kind of run into with the call by call? Because I know that's the hot buzzword in our industry right now.
Biggest stumbling points that these let's go with the $1 to $3 million guys, right?
Okay.
Maybe they have one service manager. If we're talking straight HVAC, they might have one service manager and then the owner. And the service manager doesn't know how to close an open-faced sandwich, let alone close a deal for $20,000, right? Let's face it. He was never trained to close. He was trained to, fix capacitors. Like, come on.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have the skill set.
Yeah.
What you need to put in place, you need a general sales manager that sits over everyone just under the owner. They all answer to him. You have to train your staff on the call by call, right? So if you have all three trades, you have 10 leads on the board, that's actually 30 leads. Because you got to flip between the trades. But they're not doing that because they're letting their technicians go rogue and make executive decisions. So every single call turns green on Service Titan. Every manager should be looking at that call. All their pictures should be going in. Your electric panel, your water heater, your air handler, at the roof line to see if there's mold, your condenser, the electrical safety disconnect outside. Everything should be in there. The same pictures every single time. And all the managers are looking. when they're there, you're there for an AC tune-up for $29, and the AC is perfect. Folks, good news is perfect. But you got an old Zinsco or Pushmatic stab lock electric panel that's literally a fire hazard.
Yeah.
Your electrician needs to be on his way before that other guy leaves the house to take a look at it to make sure it's safe. Or you're not doing your job.
Right.
How many times, and I don't know how you've heard it, I heard it enough times that I solved the problem. Yeah. I hate when a customer calls. We go to a house that we were at 6 months ago. We find an issue. They get to talk to me. And what do they say? Yeah. Why didn't you tell me last time?
Right.
So now they want it for free.
Yep.
If you're doing the call by call, you're telling them. If you get rid of that, why didn't you tell me last time? You will go from 1 to 3 million. Because you tell them every time. I've been here 3 times. The electric panel is still bad. We got to fix it. I can't leave you like this.
Yeah. Well, and I think to your point, I think call by call is the new sexy thing, right? But the other thing that most people are I think becoming more aware of, which is good that our industry is doing that, is that the callbacks, right? Like what's your percentage on callbacks? Because that can really bleed you, right? Because like not only because I think a lot of people think like, oh, it's just coming back, and we'll just it sucks, it eats up a little bit of time, but like to your point, you get the customer making demands at that point, right? Because they kind of feel like they got you over a barrel, like, hey, your reputation is on the line. You need to fix this for me. Here's how you're going to fix it. You're going to do this, XYZ, service, to your point. And so it's like, I think that's the other piece that, again, hard to put numbers to this stuff, but I think if you've been in our industry long enough, you've experienced enough of these, you kind of know where it's headed before it's even headed there. And to your point, it's like, man, I mean, how many extra words does it take, right? And what's the effort of expelling those words to say, hey, we need to get this electrical panel changed out now, as opposed to waiting for the callback that's coming in a couple of months, the irate customer, this poor service tech that's got to go out there with his tail between his legs and get beat up verbally by this customer, only to have him call back or her call back to the office and say, hey, I got to do this for free, or this lady is not going to let me leave, and I'm going to be chained in the basement, right? Like I just, whatever the situation is.
First they tell you the price, that it's going to be free, and then they tell you the threat that they're going to go on Google and give you the baby. So it's the same script. The customers have better scripts than the company.
Ain't that the truth, man? Ugh. Yeah, Ken, that's my world, man. I can't tell you how much, because, it's all about the reviews piece and just your reputation. And it's just, I know business owners know how fragile it is, but it's just like, man, you can get yourself on a real slippery slope real quick and just find yourself like, because again, that's not going to cost you just the $600 or whatever in labor and materials to actually fix that out. Yeah. It's going to cost you a couple of systems, right? So the question is like, is that negative review, is it worth, $80,000, $100,000 over the next two years? Like, I don't know. Like, you tell me
what it's going to cost you, right? It's only going to cost you one, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
You don't know how much damage one review could do. Horizon Services has 40,000 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
But I had been in houses where they wanted to talk about the 50 bad ones. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where they go. I mean, every time on Amazon, man, that's where I go. I go to the negative reviews and I try and figure out if the person's out of their mind, right? And they have too many cats or whatever the situation is, right? And then I read through for legitimacy. And then depending on whether those are legitimate or not, I go, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's a feature I wouldn't really like about the product, right? Like, it's not about, like you're saying, it's not the 40,000 reviews. It's those 50 that just were bad. And it's like, okay, what processes and procedures have you put in place to make sure that doesn't happen to me? Because nobody wants that, right?
So they got to fix your call center. Then you got to make sure your techs are all rowing in the same direction, doing the same thing. And if you're not mystery shopping them or coaching them or watching them, you're probably the issue.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for owners to look at themselves and say, it can't be my problem. It's my techs. No, they're your techs.
Right.
Right. So if they're your tech, these are my kids. And if they're acting like morons, it's my fault.
Yeah.
So your techs are getting $0 tickets. Guess whose fault it is? Yours.
Yeah.
Because you're not solving the problem. And the problem is solved by the call-by-call and having the right call-by-call guy. Now, will you get your $0 calls completely eliminated? No, that's impossible. No one in the country can do that. But you can get them way down.
Yeah.
You take them from 20% down to 3%, you're a pretty happy guy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But you go out there, you diagnose it for free, you do unpaid consulting, and then you hand them their bid in 20 minutes. They just give it to the next guy who beats your price and gets the job.
Yeah. So okay, so let's move on to the next segment. Call by call goes through maybe, and maybe you can give me both kind of scenarios, right? Like they Roger up, they want to do the service. What's kind of our next, the next step to just delivering an awesome show, right? Versus maybe they go, yeah, I don't really have the money right now, I don't want to do it. What are those two different variants? How does one kind of close the loop on that show, that experience, and maybe kind of get them back to the table? Like what would you say if we're choosing our own adventure on both of those? Like what are
All right,
best
so
practices
and
there?
again, it depends on your company, right? Are you using selling
Sure.
technicians or are you using sales guys at this point? Are you flipping? I'm a big proponent of selling techs right now. And the reason I am is because the internet, they know a sales guy is coming out. They know it's not a supervisor. If you think they don't know, then you don't know, right?
Right.
You need to rethink your life because they know you're coming out to sell them something. So when they're sitting there and they're scoffing about the price, listen, find a reason to make a deal, guys. They walk away. They let the technician walk away. The call-by-call managers, whoever that is, the service manager should be talking to the customer. If they can't get the deal, that should get kicked up to the general sales manager, who, if it's a guy like me, I'm getting the deal because we're already there. We already paid to go. The technicians get paid by the hour. Let's minimize the loss. What do we got to do? Listen, duct fogging, right? Here's a little tip that I don't give other companies, but I will. A bottle of biocide to fog ductwork costs $35. You can fog like 60 houses with this thing, and you can charge anything you want. You can charge $1,200. You can charge $200, but it's all straight profit because it doesn't cost you anything. So do that before you leave with zero for $300. At least fog the duct. Don't leave with zero. But they all leave with zero because they don't look at other ways to make revenue.
Now, I mean, obviously this goes, there's training that's involved to get these selling techs kind of dialed into that. In that sort of situation, do people have like a laminated flow chart, right? Like I'm thinking back to my,
the old Next Star days where you had the
like, I mean, that's like every problem you could troubleshoot in the Navy had a flow chart to it, right? So it's like you just follow the flow chart, it's like what do you do? Because there's obviously so many ways that something could go, right? But to your point, that's a good backup plan, like fog the ducks kind of thing. So I'd just be kind of curious, how do you usually implement something like that? Or is it always like, hey, this is our go-to no matter what, right? You're not leaving empty-handed. Here's an easy cash grab. Like what's kind of the mindset around that, I guess?
Well, it depends on the situation. The mindset is, listen, walk in like Ric Flair, right? This is me walking like Ric Flair. Even when Ric Flair loses, he's still Ric Flair, right? Like,
it's true.
He's still walking out the greatest of all time. So guys are in the home. They're going to the home. They got to know, A, that call by, whoever's working that call by call has their back. Okay, so a customer gets mad about whatever it is. If they know that their chances of their close rate going up with you guys watching is much higher, they're your guys, man. And you got to take care of them. You got to call them. You got to throw them some extra cash here and there. They will follow the script. Half hour in, they got to check in with you. They should have all their pictures in a half an hour, maybe 35, 40 minutes. And they know you're looking. So they should be checking in with you once they diagnose. The manager goes over the 3 options with them. Boom, boom, boom. Go present it and then get me on the phone. Now, if they pick one of the options, great. But if they're saying, no, it's all too crazy, too expensive, this manager should be on the phone. Because I can't leave you like this. Now, this is true. I legitimately sit on the board for the Red Cross. This is a true story. And when there's a safety issue, I'm on the phone with the customer. Because I don't want to get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning that their house is on fire. I don't want that call. I don't want to see the calls for anybody.
Right.
So when you're at the house, man, if it was your mother's house, you'd be fixing it. You got to find a way to fix it. Get the general sales manager on the phone. He should be trying to close the deal. Make sure they're safe. Number one priority. And if people know how much you care, they're going to do business with you. The money goes out the window.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you next, is like, I think because if you take it from the approach of like, hey techs, I want you guys to sell now. They're like, oh, I don't want to be a used car salesman. No, please, no, I can't tell my mother-in-law that I sell now, right? Like she's going to think less of me, right? So I think, into your point, it's just about changing the direction of the targets that they're aiming at and realizing, like, hey, you're not aiming at a sale. What you're aiming at is serving the customer better at a different level, because I think that's what's in the DNA of a good tech, right? Is like, hey, I like coming out, I like fixing things, I like solving problems, I like leaving with the customer super happy, and just repointing them away from the dollars. Now the dollars will come, obviously, if they're on the right, if they're aiming at the right target that they want to hit every time, which is doing right by the customer. And to your point, I think if you can get it into your head that, like, yes, I know you don't want to, like, you don't want this customer to spend any more money than they have to, because you act like it's your money when it's not, right? Like, the customer wants their thing solved, right? They called you for a reason. They're sitting there. They took the day off of work, unless, they're your, grandma, and then they're just retired waiting for this to happen, and it's the coolest thing all day. But for them, what are your thoughts or feelings in terms of, like, helping a selling tech or a tech turn into a selling tech by realizing that, like, hey, this is actually you just going above and beyond to make sure that, this person is safe, that you can walk away, that you're not going to, not that they would get the call, but the owner's not going to get a call, and that something terrible wouldn't happen. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Is that something that's just born and bred into your kind of thought process, or your, coaching?
Old habits die hard.
Sure, of course.
All right. Older techs are generally the ones that will fight you tooth and nail, because they'll tell you, I can't overcharge, I want to sleep at night.
Right.
Because they're selfish.
Yeah.
You know who can't sleep at night is the owner of their company.
Yeah.
Because you know who eats off of his kitchen table? Every one of the employees.
Right.
But that one selling tech now who's saying, I'm not doing that, let him go open his own company. He can be the cheap guy and go out of business in a week and a half.
Right. Yep.
All right. So I would rather have, and this is kind of a Navy SEAL thing, I'd rather have mediocre guys that are very loyal than high performers that are selfish and unloyal.
100%.
So I would rather get young guys and train them from Jump Street how to do it, what to say, and start completely over with them. I dare now. My kids are not in the HVAC industry.
Yeah.
But if I put a shirt on them and send them to a house, I guarantee you they do the exact process from beginning to end, and they never deviate. Because they have listened to me do this so many times. And my oldest son might jump in. But you want the younger guys that are coachable and that want to make the money. That they understand. This is a business. It's not a charity. Yeah. There can be somebody cheaper. That's great. We're not cheaper because our trucks are more money, and our clothes are more money, and our tools are more money, and our warranties are better, and our installers pay more. I want my guys to have a 401k. I want them to have good health insurance. Yeah. The technicians don't ever look at that stuff because they don't know what stuff costs. They just think they make $30 an hour. I'm there for an hour. The part only costs $12. How are we at $650? Because it costs $400 to send you.
Yeah.
That's how. What? Yeah. They don't understand labor rates. And I can say most owners don't understand their labor rate an hour.
Yeah.
And that's one of the other big problems with this, because your labor rate is not based on the guy you're sending to the house.
Right.
It's based on what that truck cost you per hour.
Yeah.
And I think, and it was a Drew Cameron story, I think the average labor rate in the country is $681 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's why parts are expensive, man. Yeah. If you want to grow from 1 to 3, get out of the mindset of the cheap guys. If your technicians are holding you back from that, cut them loose.
Yeah.
Get other guys, younger guys. You bring in someone like myself or Drew Cameron, or there's other guys you can find are good guys.
Yeah.
And let them coach them up. Invest in your guys, and they will jump on board with the process. Because you only need one guy to succeed.
Yep.
Because then he'll tell everybody else, and then they'll all jump on board, right? So you find your guy, boom, you ride along with them, and you coach them up. I get pushback from the older guys that are stuck in their ways.
Of course.
I never get pushback from the younger guys.
No.
And I can tell you this, this is at USA Home here. The first job I sold here, first call we went to, $36,000 duct job.
Yeah.
And the kid was having a heart attack. I would just put him on the phone. 36. Put the guy on the phone, bro. It's full of mold. It's disgusting. What do you want to do? Where's the wife at? Show him the pictures.
Yeah.
Call by call. Show him the pictures. Ask for the sale. And just prove that you're the best.
Yep. Exactly.
That's it. And just do what you said you were going to do. These other guys go out there, they talk a good game, talk bad about everybody else, and then they want to be cheap.
Well, it just goes back to your processes, right? Because I think that's the other piece is people are really afraid to let people go. And the reason is because they think, well, I'm going to have to spend all this time training. Well, it's like, well, if you put your processes in place, that training, although causes some friction, right, won't nearly cause you as much friction as that person kind of being that boat anchor and just holding you back and slowing you down, right? But if you can, quickly indoctrinate somebody, train them up, OGT, whatever else you need to institute and instill these processes in them, it's a pretty swift thing. So, all right, Ken, let's kind of wrap this up here, man. What do you do, or like, what are your best practices, recommendations? They did all they could with the call by call. The tech was actually pretty good, but for some reason this person's holding out. It's like they're one of those, like, I got to sleep on it before I make a decision, right? Like, what do you do in your follow-up process to just kind of, bring it on home, cause that customer experience that's been awesome so far, but just couldn't close the sale at the time? How do you extend that into the future? Follow up, like, what does that look like? And we'll kind of close out here.
Well, listen, so what guys do at the end, right? And my $0 tickets are very low. I know other guys will say those are the lowest, but like mine are pretty low.
Yeah.
Even when my guys are done, we're not done. Right. So it's always going to be the same thing. You're at the kitchen table, you presented, no. I talk to them, no. And then they're going to hit them with the line. I'm going to give them another freebie. That technician or salesperson should say, okay, folks, I appreciate that. So here's what's going to happen next. And you reset the agenda for when you leave. I'm going to go out to my truck, and I'm going to send in what's called a closeout. And in that closeout, it's going to talk about everything you and I talked about today. And I'm going to send that in. And when I send that in, a very nice young lady, whatever you want to call this person, in my office is going to see that, and they're immediately going to check our inventory to see if we have that in stock. Because we floor plan all of our equipment, and after 30 days, we got to pay for it anyway. So she's going to see if we have it in stock. If we have it, she's going to call me and tell me she's got to get rid of it and ask me how much you want to pay for this job. So what do you think the job's worth now that we're off the table?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if you did it for $450. $450? All right, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go out there. If I come knock back on that door, we're fixing it for $450, okay? Great. Shake my hand. It was a pleasure meeting you. If I come back, I'll see you in a minute. If not, it was a pleasure seeing you. And you leave. Yeah. And you go out to your truck, and you call your boss and go, yeah, they got $450. You want it or not?
Yeah.
Take it. Back, knock on the door, take the $450, fix the darn thing, and get the heck out of Dodge.
Yep.
That's how you get rid of it.
Love it.
I'm going to send an invoice to all the people watching now for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you should. Well, in that vein, actually, Ken, obviously, thank you so much for sharing, man. If somebody does want to get a hold of you, just wants to maybe give you a phone call and hear you pump them up, because I just feel excited. I want to go sell something right after this. So luckily, I do have a sales call right after this, so I'm excited to go talk to that new client. Yeah, thanks, man. And then, so what's the best way for them to get a hold of you, contact you? I mean, I know we connected over LinkedIn and through other connections.
You can get me on LinkedIn under Ken Infante. You can get me on Facebook under Ryder Infante, my wrestling name, or you can just reach out to me by email, which is RyderInfante@AOL.com. And I'm easy, man. Shoot me an email. I'll get back to you in a few minutes.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much for just sharing your enthusiasm, your insight, your wisdom. Obviously, there was two really, really juicy pieces and golden nuggets there. So I hope people were listening. Go back, obviously, listen to the podcast if you feel like it. But thank you guys so much for plugging in. Again, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, write a review if you feel so inclined. Please share this with other HVAC owners. Again, we just want to make sure that the biggest barrier to entry into our industry is the level of professionalism with which you have to execute your business. Ken did a great job of explaining that, hey, if you want to be the cheapest guy on the block, sure, go hang your shingle, be out of business in a week and a half. For us, it's more about just providing and caring for our community in a way that just instills confidence in our trade and continues to have people being willing to and excited to reach out to their HVAC installer and service repairman anytime they need it. So with that, we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much for chiming in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.